If you were to poll 1,000 Legend of Zelda fans to rank each game, Zelda II Adventure of Link would easily take the bottom spot as the worst game in the franchise. I don't believe I have ever seen as many player beware posts or comments than I have with this game. That being said, I wanted to go into this game with as fair and open a mind as I could muster. Since it was the next entry in the Game of the Year's series, I dove in headfirst. And boy, did I wish I had worn a helmet. As usual, I will be measuring my rating of this game using 6 different factors: gameplay, story, art, game design, music, and vibe, with scores out of 100. The categories will be averaged at the end, at which point I will bring in the X Factor score, which can boost the overall up to 10 points. Like a relationship filled with red and green flags alike, let's jump in with both feet and parse the good from the bad. So let's rip the band-aid off and start with what will be the harshest category: the gameplay mechanics. Simply put, I found them incredibly frustrating. The combat sits in this strange middle ground, at once overly simplistic yet unexpectedly difficult, made worse by a lack of intuitive design. One of the biggest issues is how late the downward thrust is introduced. It should have been available much earlier. Without it, combat feels incomplete, almost amputated. I don't mind gaining abilities mid-game when they feel earned, like the healing spell. Sure, I would have loved to have had it earlier, but the timing felt appropriate and rewarding. The downward thrust, on the other hand, didn't feel earned at all. It felt like something that should have been in your arsenal from the very beginning. I know this because I instinctively tried to use it early on in my playthrough without even knowing it existed. The magic system doesn't help either. You collect 8 spells throughout the game, but realistically only 3 matter: shield, heal, and occasionally fire. The rest are one-off story spells or situational gimmicks that exist mainly to justify certain dungeon roadblocks. They don't feel meaningful, just like filler. Enemy behavior adds another layer of frustration. Some foes, like the blue ironclads, seem to have no consistent patterns. I could defeat one with ease only to encounter another behaving completely different minutes later and end up dead. That unpredictability might have been fine if the combat system was more flexible and responsive, but it isn't. It's rigid, sluggish, and erratic. The result? More than once, I had to put my controller down, walk away, and literally take a breather before I could psych myself up to try again. I'm going to give the gameplay a 31. For this category alone, this game may be the most deserving of a remake of the entire Zelda franchise. Much like the original Legend of Zelda, The Adventure of Link features a bare-bones story. In fact, the entire plot is delivered in a single block of text on the title screen, not even when you start your playthrough. You literally have to let the NES sit idle at the title screen to catch the little bit of story the game bothers to give you. Here's the gist. After Ganon's defeat in the first game, Princess Zelda is put into a deep sleep. To awaken her, Link must travel to 6 temples, place 6 crystals, unlock the door to the Great Temple, defeat a dark version of himself, and claim the Triforce of Courage. That's it. No additional story is delivered along the way, not even when you visit the many towns scattered throughout the game. And here's the kicker. It's not even the same Zelda from the first game. How is any player supposed to know that? The truth, buried deep in the game's lore but never actually explained in the game itself, is that this sleeping Zelda lived centuries earlier. Her brother tried to force her to reveal secrets about the Triforce, and when she refused, he put her into a magical sleep. Regretful, he locked her away in a tower and decreed that every princess of the royal family from then on would be named Zelda. That's why the Zelda you rescued in the first game even has that name. None of this, however, is explained in the game. It's practically hidden history. That being said, there are 3 highlights of the story worth mentioning. The Triforce of Courage, which makes its first appearance in this game, an iconic piece that would go on to become a cornerstone of the series, symbolically tied to Link himself. Secondly, even though Ganon never physically appears, his presence looms large. If you die, he actually laughs at you. Later lore explains why. His minions believe that they can resurrect him with Link's blood. So your death doesn't just mean this Wish.com Zelda stays asleep, it means Ganon comes back to life and Hyrule falls without the hero to defend it. Finally, we have to talk about Dark Link. Not only was this his first appearance in the Zelda series, but as far as I can tell, it was the first time in any video game ever that the final boss was an evil version of the main character. Facing your own shadow was eerie, haunting, and unforgettable. It perfectly symbolized what Link had to endure to truly earn the Triforce of Courage. I will be giving the story a 56. If they had sprinkled some more of the story throughout the conversations with NPCs, that would have helped a lot. The visual design of the Adventure of Link is a tricky one to pin down. In certain areas, like dungeons, enemy encounters, and towns, the game takes a noticeable leap forward compared to its predecessor. Enemy sprites are larger, more detailed, and more menacing. Towns actually feature moving NPCs you can interact with, even if most don't have anything of interest to say. Bosses, too, stand out with creative designs that push the NES hardware impressively. Thunderbird, for instance, instantly reminded me of the surreal, almost alien look of quote-unquote biblically accurate angels, and Dark Link, simple, yet absolutely perfect. That said, the environments don't always keep up. The towns rarely evolve beyond a basic palette swap. Different building colors, slightly altered roads, and little else. Dungeons suffer the same issue, with repetitive color-swapped aesthetics that quickly lose their impact. A bit more variety could have gone a long way in making the world feel alive. Where the visuals stumble the hardest, though, is the overworld. Compared to the rest of the game, it feels shockingly bland and even ugly at times. The jump in quality between the overworld and the more detailed areas is jarring, and it hurts the overall presentation. However, I will give bonus points to the curtain closing scene at the end of the game. Seeing Zelda lean in for a kiss honestly made me chuckle. I will be scoring this a 69 in visual design. When it comes to level design, about 80 to 90% of the first 6 temples felt like a copy and paste job, with the primary difference being their color palettes, as already talked about. Every now and then, a dungeon would throw in a small twist, like this room, where you had to intentionally fall through to lower floors, or this one, which had false floors you needed to avoid. But these moments were rare exceptions. For the most part, the design was repetitive and felt lazy to me. That said, I did appreciate the occasional standout. One temple room in particular was redesigned around a unique fight mechanic, and it was a genuine breath of fresh air compared to the cookie-cutter boss rooms that came before it. Unfortunately, the final temple had its own shortcomings. Progress required navigating invisible walls, completely mandatory, yet never hinted at. Without a guide, I am confident I would have never found the invisible walls in question and would have given up out of sheer confusion. Overall, the world and level design felt monotonous, tedious to traverse, and frequently perplexing, and not in a good way. What little variety existed was overshadowed by a sense of sameness that made the adventure feel more like a chore than an epic quest. For level design, I will be giving a score of 68. Moving into the music, I really wanted this category to help the overall score, but unfortunately, the music suffers from the same pitfalls as the art and level design. The game only offers a small handful of songs, and while a few are excellent and memorable, most land in the just fine category. Let's start with the positives. The overworld theme is strong, catchy, and recognizable, but it comes with a major caveat. Compared to its predecessor, it feels like a downgrade. That's especially disappointing when you consider that the original Legend of Zelda overworld theme was famously composed in a single night as a last-minute replacement. With 2 years of development, you'd think Adventure of Link could have elevated it, but instead it feels weaker. Other standouts include the final temple theme and the Dark Link battle theme. Both of which left a lasting impression. Unfortunately, that's where the highlights end. The game only has one standard battle track, one town track, one overworld track, and one standard temple track. With 6 nearly identical temples, reusing the same dungeon music only amplified the repetition. To put it into perspective, Final Fantasy I, which released a year earlier, had multiple dungeon-specific tracks to match and enhance each area's atmosphere. Meanwhile, Adventure of Link settles for recycling the same music across all its dungeons, making them feel even more monotonous. Despite my harsh words, I don't dislike the soundtrack. The few strong tracks carry weight, and I still enjoy them. I just wish there had been more of them. This feels like yet another slice of the game that just didn't get the attention it deserved. I will be scoring the music at a 65. The overall vibe of playing The Adventure of Link ended up being the major highlight of the entire experience for me. For all the technical frustrations I had with the mechanics, storytelling, and design, I can't ignore how the game made me feel when I allowed myself to push those complaints aside. And that feeling was almost identical to the sense of wonder I got from the original game, only now with a few additions that elevated it even higher. The standout moment was Link's battle against an evil version of himself. Normally, I'm not a fan of random last-minute twists, especially when there's no groundwork laid for them throughout the entire story. But in this case, it worked brilliantly, and the reason it worked is tied directly to the very item you've been chasing since the start, the Triforce of Courage. By its very name, the Triforce of Courage sets an expectation for what a true hero must overcome to prove themselves worthy. So when you walk into that chamber, thinking you've already defeated the final boss, only to realize you must face the darkness within your own heart, it just clicks. No foreshadowing required. My immediate reaction was, yeah, that makes sense. And then I charged in. Granted, I got my butt kicked until I found a somewhat cheesy way to win, but still. All of this to say, while the mechanics, story, and level design left me underwhelmed, the vibe of the game was excellent. It delivered moments of awe and meaning that stuck with me. Those moments helped carry the game. I will be giving a vibe score of 92, reduced only due to the number of times I had to walk away from the game to cool off from the actual gameplay. The Adventure of Link is a flawed, frustrating, and often repetitive game, but one that still manages to capture flashes of brilliance. For all its shortcomings, the sense of wonder it delivers, especially in its final act, keeps it from fading into obscurity. For those keeping track, this brings the average score to 61.83, and with an added X Factor score of 8, the final total comes to 69.83. The reason I gave it such a high X Factor score is simple. The Adventure of Link is second only to Ocarina of Time on my list of games I most wish Nintendo would remake. The potential here is enormous. With a full ground-up rebuild, fleshing out the story, adding more dungeons and music variety, polishing the overworld, making spells more broadly useful, and refining combat into something less frustrating, I believe this game could stand proudly amongst the rest of the lineup, if not, become many fans' favorite in the series. That's my take, at least. Thank you for watching this review of Zelda II: Adventure of Link. I hope you enjoyed it, or perhaps even just found it useful. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and if you would like to see more of these reviews, please like and subscribe.